Good afternoon, and welcome to possibly the worst podcast on the internet, Rough and Rowdy. I'm your host, Ron Lauro. We're here today. We're going to talk a little about, families and racing and how their kids get into racing and stuff like that. Thought it was a pretty interesting topic. A lot of the kids want to get into racing, whether it's a friend that's racing or their parents who had raced in the past, and they get into the racing, and which is great. We need more youngsters in the racing, and we all do this for fun. We all have the I don't know what the word is. Like I always say, I'm not great with these big words, but we all want to see our kids do great, move up to that next level, possibly to, the Cup Series, NASCAR level. And, that's pretty impossible, really, realistically, it's pretty impossible to do. I'm not saying it is impossible, it is pretty impossible. So a lot of kids start out, most of the kids there, their fathers, grandfathers, it could be third generation races. They get into the sport, and then you get the kids that want to race, and their parents really maybe just went to the track to watch racing. They weren't racers themselves or even involved in racing. It could be a banker, a painter, whatever it is, and the kid wants to get into it. So now you're at the track, you really don't know a lot, and you're competing against a different level where these other kids have their parents that have been racing and have more knowledge of setups and how to drive, and I believe it's great to get them in, and I think we do this for fun, and I think a lot of people stop. They don't realize this is what we're doing. We're here for our kids to have fun and for us to have fun watching our kids do well, right? So you don't want to have like bad feelings there. Bad feelings are contagious. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're yelling and screaming, your kids see this, and the next parents are doing it. So it's like, let's go there, let's have some fun. Life is short. Let's not take that for granted, right? Let's not take that for granted. So a lot of these kids start out with, watching their favorite drivers, or they have a hero that drives, whether it's NASCAR or at Seekonk, and, they want to be like these guys. So, we're going to think about it, the older drivers, the drivers that have been there, these kids look up to you, and you need to, present yourself in a way that, that these kids see and that they'll do, you know what I mean? They see people yelling, screaming, fighting, that's no good, So, so, go to the track, have fun. Be present in the moment, take that day of like racing, whether you won, whether, you had an incident, and chalk it up for a learning experience and go move on to that, these kids are, they're young, they learn fast, these kids learn fast, they absorb everything, whether, good or bad, So what I was thinking is, a lot of kids, they know right from wrong, but, when it's on the track, you're trying to teach them right from wrong. And a lot of parents that, have the experience of racing and see their kids are like, what are you doing? Why'd you do this? And the kid's like, well, I didn't know. And, sometimes it's frustrating. You get frustrated, and you don't want to get frustrated. You want to keep a positive attitude. You want to, explain to the kid, or your son, daughter, what they're doing and how to make it any better. Let me see, we got some chat in here I wanted to check. Junior, how you doing? Doing great today. I'm pretty excited to be on the show for a little while before the Side Draft podcast comes on in, I'd say, about an hour and a half, a little under an hour and a half. We'll be off well before that. But yeah, they're going to have three great drivers, young drivers up and coming, and you got Colin Vaness and the two Robidoux. I hope I said the name right. I wouldn't botch that. But, they're, up and coming drivers. So all these kids and these families, they want their kids to go and do great, and they want them to move to that next level and go to that. They're in bandos. They want them to go to legends or late models, and sometimes we want to move them up too fast. I'm guilty of it myself. I did that with Rowdy when he was like 13. I want to get him in a late model, and we get the car and at the track, and I didn't even really know this until like like now, like it was a couple of days ago that he didn't want to drive that car that day at Waterford, and I don't know if it was me or somebody was like, you don't drive the car, you're not going to drive the Legend anymore, and that's not a way to go around it. You don't want to make the kid upset. We go to the track, like I say, and I keep saying it, it's my mantra. We go to have fun. That's the main thing. Moving up or going to, NASCAR, it's everybody's dream. Of course, everybody has that dream. The thing is, you can be the greatest driver, right? You can be the greatest driver, and that doesn't mean you're going to make it. It doesn't mean you're going to make it to NASCAR or Xfinity. What will help you make it there is being a salesman, right? You need to be able to sell yourself and market yourself, right? Because if you can do that, you can market yourself and you can get sponsors that back you up, then if you can do that, you'll always have funding and you'll always have, car to drive. You'll have the money to put together a team and race, and if you can't do that, then it's coming out of your pocket. And if you don't have unlimited funds, which we know a lot of us don't have that, and you're just taking it out of your pocket. And this sport is addicting, believe me. Some people just do anything to, I don't just spend the money, and I'll worry about buying food next week, right? So, that's not a good thing, And like you said, it's like you said, it takes money, time, a team, experience. There's only, a few drivers, I think, and I might be wrong, it might be more, but I was listening to a podcast today, and they were mentioning that there was a few drivers that actually raced their way through the ranks, not having the money, just like, here's millions of dollars, go racing, or having, fathers like, Kevin Harvick or like Ryan Blaney, Bill Elliott. These people were groomed, and they have the money and stuff to go to these levels. So it's a tough sport, to do, to move up and do that kind of stuff to make it to the next levels. So I think the couple drives that actually drove their, raced their way through was like, I think it said it was Larson and Bell, Christopher Bell, that actually didn't come from money and actually, with their talent and their sales, they sell themselves. That's a big thing. And, I do a lot of the PR, whatever you want to call it, for our team and for Rowdy. I'd really like to get him more involved. Because he's a great kid, and is a great sportsman when it comes to this sport. So I think that's for every kid out there racing. You have your racing page, Instagram or whatever it is, and you promote yourself. You show what you're doing every week and how you're making out, and have little short videos of yourself talking and expressing how you feel about the sport. So I think that's a big part of it. I think you need to sell yourself. You got to be able to pick up those sponsors that will support you through your racing career. If anybody's watching, have any questions or any comments, drop them in the comments. I'd be happy, to answer if I have the capability. So again, like I said, every time I come on is please share our podcast. Go on and share it to your friends, family. Put it on your Facebook page or Instagram. Get it out there so we can get more followers on this podcast, and we'll make it more interesting. I'm very slowly learning the process of this stuff. I really have to, get some more equipment and and learn a little bit more how to. Go about setting up videos and stuff like that, because I love to be able to do stuff like that, and I love to collaborate with other people. I think I might have the capabilities right now. Like I said, I'm only doing this off my cell phone right now, so bear with me. But I hope you guys still enjoy it. I think I can bring people on the stream if anybody wanted to come on, stuff like that. I said, I think there's a button here. But so back to what we were talking about the parents in racing, and I think when I see parents get together when some other driver has an issue and the other teams are over there helping out, that's what I see racing about. Everybody getting together and working, helping your fellow racer out, not being like, oh, good, they crashed out. Jump in, give them a hand, get them out there, But here we go. So we were, talking about how the kids don't know right from wrong when they first start. They're young, if you have experience, you think they should know all this stuff when they don't, because they're young and they're just starting out at this sport. So you gotta go easy with them. You gotta slowly and show them and tell them, spend time with them after they get out of the car and debrief, and if you have chances to walk around the track, if you can, walk around the track with them and let them know, like, yeah, this is where you should be, this is about where you should be getting on the gas, and that'll go a long way with that, and you get to spend more time with them. I remember back in the day when racing was simple, we would just, we'd have an open trailer and we had a toolbox, throw some tires on there and a jacket, and we'd go racing. It was simple, easy, go to the junkyard and get parts and keep going. Now it's so much more advanced. It's so much more advanced, the racing. You got people putting GoPro videos so they can watch what they what's happening, what they're doing. People filming the races so you can go back and watch them instantaneously. You know what I mean? It's like with the technology we have today. And then you get a lot of these teams now that the parents, they have coaches for their kids, and they got crew chiefs, and they got all this stuff. And if you go to the level where you got the like the NASCAR level guys that have their kids doing it, they've got so much more of an advantage, with with the technology and being able to get, the latest and greatest stuff, and the people behind them support them. Never mind funding, because they're already involved with a Bass Pro, whatever big sponsors they are. I forget the one Kevin Harvick's kid has. What was that one, Tim? Hunt Brothers Pizza. Yeah, Tim's here. He's under the car over there. He's doing a little, I call him gazintas. He's doing his gazintas. Numbers and angles. So let him do his thing, and I figured I'd come on and do a little podcast. I'm trying to be a little more consistent, with the show. Come on a little bit more. And the cost of all of this, it costs a lot of money. Whether you're racing, bandos, or you're racing a pro stock, or anything in between. There's a lot of money, a lot of time, and that's why I say, if you're going to the track and you're not having fun, at the end of the day, why are you there? You need to go there and have fun at these things. That's just these events and stuff that we do. And it's like a lot of the parents and everybody, we're all so competitive. It's like a lot of people is like, oh, it's so hard to have fun, because I'm so competitive. How do I have fun when I'm so competitive? Well, you're there. Your kids are competitive too. But if you lay that in them all the time, that if that's what it's all about, then when they're not doing well, then they don't feel like they're doing what they're supposed to do. So I think you always got to give your kids a pat on the back, whether they finished first or last. They're out there, they're giving it their all, and I'm sure you're giving it your all to try to get the car the best you can for them. And at the end of the day, it's about having fun. It's about having fun. And people go out and start racing, and they go out and they spend a lot of money, tons of money. You gotta go out and buy the best, this $30,000 trailer, they get a truck to pull it, this and that, I have never been in that boat. I think I bought one brand new car. That's when I bought my pro stock back in, I don't know, it was the one that Freddie ended up driving, and I drove that outside of 2001. I don't know, somewhere around 2005 or something like that, I bought one new car. After that, I've always bought new, and then it was a saying Freddie had. Freddie always said, "Why buy new when used will do?" Right? I have that in my memory forever. So it's like new versus used. You got brand new and you got used, right? What's the difference? Yeah, you got new parts, a new car. Does it mean it's faster? No. You can buy a used car. You put the time in. You take it apart. You go through each piece, each part, and you put it back together. You spend less money. You go to the track, and you can do just as well as the guy that spent $90,000 on his car, or nevertheless, I don't know how much a new Legend is what now. I think you can almost spend 30 grand on these things, 27 grand on a Legend, right? So, you can be competitive and you can win with old equipment. And I think that the money has just gotten out of control. Spending the money on this sport is out of control, and it takes a toll on the parents. They look at it like, hey, spending all this money, we haven't won any races. Well, I don't know, there's some kids that go on baseball teams and their teams, maybe win a couple of games out of the year, they don't make it to the playoffs or whatever, But did they have fun through the year with their team and all their friends that they see every time they go to the baseball game? Hell yeah. And that's what it's about. This is what we gotta, we got to stop thinking about that. We're at this track. It's a local track. We're there, all there to have some fun. You know, at the end of the day, we're there to have fun. So, um, you know, then is the thing of with the parents. You know, and this shows, you know, the enthusiasm of the parents. Which Jacob is my nephew, and believe me, I am so enthused. I get riled up with myself. So I'm I'm guilty. I'm guilty myself of everything I'm talking about. So, you know, but you know, sometimes when you sit back and reflect and you think about it, you're like, yeah, that's, you know, this is what we got to do. Hey, Justin, looking forward to seeing your show tonight, buddy. Like I said, I'm still learning about this stuff, and I want to do a show together. Whether I have to come to your place and we do it together, or if we can do it via, I link up to you and we're both on. I think that'd be a great time. But yeah, yeah. So it's like it's great to win. Winning is great, obviously. You know, we 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 all love to win. Let me see. I might have to get my glasses. You have the absolute best, but if you have no talent, you can't figure out the track. It may look pretty, but it won't go nowhere. Exactly. I almost said that. Who was that? I'm sorry. Hey, Joey, how you doing? That's absolutely right. You have the best equipment, best looking car, you know, and you're riding around in the back. But no, I think everybody like to have brand new stuff, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think, especially when we're doing this for fun, we all want to win, but we're on budgets. At the end of the day, you know, we don't have uh, wallets that have money trees in our backyards. I always, my wife always kids with me. She's like, yeah, all right, go back on the money trees and get some more money for those race cars. But I want to go back to like the sponsor stuff. Like I said, the greatest driver, you could be the greatest driver, doesn't mean you're going to make it to that next level or to NASCAR. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you're going to, but if you can sell yourself and market yourself, and get sponsors to fund what you love to do and you're good at it, then you have more of a shot to go to that next level. Definitely, But yeah, I was saying about moving up too soon. I think, and I was, like I said, I was guilty of it myself. If you saw earlier about, me, getting a late model with Jacob, and, I didn't even know. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were telling me, they were in the stands when he came up and he was, I don't even want to drive this car right now. I think he was 13. And, uh, you know, I didn't listen. I was like, I wanted to drive the car, and it was me. I'm the one who was pushing. I was like, I wanted to drive the car. I wanted to be like the youngest guy out there. About, it's not about that. It's about, like I said, having fun. We have fun. And I've always told Jacob when we started racing, we started racing quarter midgets, and he did a lot of that with my father. God bless his soul. And did a lot of that with him. I mean, I bought a car, used car, I bought a used quarter midget, and with the trailer and stuff, and we went racing, and he won some races with that car. My father figured it out, and he got that thing going, and then after that, bought a couple other cars, and they were used cars also, and some days he would go to the track with 3 different quarter midgets. You know what I mean? There was, I think there was a heavy 160, there was the Animal, and the World Formula. Yeah, so he would race 3 divisions sometimes. So, and he's still like that, right? Go figure, right? The kid still gotta race, everything he can whenever he can, which I love. I'm glad he has this opportunity, and I'm glad to see all these young kids out there that have this opportunity to do this and to make the friends they do at the track. I always say that, I don't know what, where, my nephew would be right now without this sport. I mean, I'm not saying he'd be bad or anything, but I see where this sport took him, as far as a growing man, and the friends that he has picked up, well, picked up, I don't know, the friends he's found along the way. He's got some really good friends, and these guys have been friends for such a long time, and the racing family at the track, it's incredible. I guess that's what keeps me going. I've been going to this since '92, '94, and of course, there's sometimes I think back in the day, I might have said 100 times, oh, I'm not coming back here, but here I am, still back here, and I just I love the sport. I love the people that are in the sport, and I think it's a great thing to get your kids into, but you got to just remember that not everybody is going to be the next Jeff Gordon or Dale Earnhardt. I said to Jacob the other night, it was like he won a couple of races, and I'm like, hey, you've won more races today than I won in my whole career. You know what I'm saying? Some people will race their whole career and maybe get a win. Some maybe they won't, but they go because they enjoy it. They have fun. They have that vision of them one day holding that checkered flag and going around the track and people cheering for it, and or it's a tough sport, as far as to be able to get to that point, to win a race, everything has to work. Everything's got to work together. So you move them up too soon, or they're out there, they're in the way, they're wrecking people, but in the same sense, you want to move them up to keep them challenged. You want them to always be challenged, right? You don't want them to, all right, be the best of, that division, which, here we are, I'm guilty again. I'm saying, Rowdy's still racing the legends, and I'm not saying he's the best of the best, but he does very well. And I think he's reached, the point of where he didn't really have to race that anymore, but he loves it so much. He loves those legend cars. He loves the way they race, and he feels that, and I see it, that helps him in the late model in the pro stock, helps him with his car control. So it's good, it's good, I guess, to stay in those divisions if you again have the money or the backing from sponsors to do that. And Rowdy's very lucky, his legend car. He's got a lot of help this year from Bobby Martins from East Coast Collision, and he's got a few other sponsors on there. He's got Cabral's Gourmet Chicken in Bristol. He's got Custom Drywall. Thanking all these guys. Thank you for your support. He's got Sporty's apparel out of they're in Connecticut. Jacob will be racing the legend over at Waterford weekly. I think his first race is this Sunday. It's a 50 lapper there from the legend. I think it's a national qualifier actually, which is pretty cool. You guys don't get enough racing on Friday and Saturday, you can run up to Waterford and get a little bit more racing in you there. So with us us local racers that want to try to make it to that next level, the big level, we have to work harder than a lot of these guys. We have to work a lot harder than these guys, in the NASCAR levels that are bringing their kids in, if we want to be successful. They have more opportunity there where, they've already had big sponsors where they can, hit them up and say, hey, my kid's racing, I have the name on the car, and they get more recognition, I would say. You see them, Keelan Harvick, he races first late model race. Every time I flip through something, I see his face, his picture, which is great, but but for us, we don't. We have to market ourselves. So that's part of what I wanted to let all these parents that are so enthusiastic with this sport. I mean, really, you need to set yourself up a nice Facebook page, Instagram, and set your son, daughter up, have them get involved in the marketing part of it. I think the sponsors want to see that. They don't want to see me or you, the parent, coming over like, oh, I want to give my kid some money. They want the kid to come. It's great to see a kid come up and talk to the sponsors and and um, and I think the sponsors love that too. Seeing the kids come and a lot of the sponsors, they come to the track and they watch the races and to support their driver, which is great. So yeah, racing is fun. We race for fun. We don't want to make it a job, right? I know it's a lot of work, but it can't become a job. You know what I mean? It's like it'll we work all day, every day of the week, and then we'll go to the track or we come to the shop at night, to release and have some fun. You get the guys in the shop, you're goofing around, your son or your daughter, you're getting to spend a lot of quality time with them. They're learning, what it takes to get to the track every week and race, and they need to see, you know, what it costs. I think, that's my opinion. I think they need to know that, this is, not get thrown in anybody's face, but they need to know this is an expensive sport. We need to get sponsors. We need to market ourselves. We need to do these things to be successful, right? We need to be, out there and thanking our fans and stuff like that, because they come to the track every week, these fans, to watch you race, and to go walk around in the stands and just shake hands with people, talk to people. Don't think they don't know. They don't know you. They see the kids. They know who they are, and I think it's great for them to get involved with that part of the marketing, and promoting themselves, and definitely parents need to be involved. And as the kids get older, they should take over a little more and a little more. I mean, for instance, like I said tonight on the podcast, on Justin's podcast, the Side Draft. Those young guys there, I mean, you look at Colin Vaness, he has a great, page, has his own Facebook page, CMV Racing, and he's always posting up stuff about where he was racing, how he's racing. They're down south now. They're doing good. I just saw Mike this weekend. He's doing good. He just picked up a pro late model to put together down there to start maybe in the 2026 season. But back to the marketing part, he does a great job with that. And also the Robidoux, you see them, they have their Robidoux Family Racing, I think it is, up on Facebook. I think that's, great. Yeah, I think it's great too. You see all the team shirts at the track, Joe. That's a really good, that's another way to promote yourself. You got T-shirts, you sell them at the track. People wear them, and then now you see these people wearing these shirts. You walk around, you see them, you come up to them and say, hey, hi, my name's Colin. Thanks for supporting us and coming out to the track, and they love it. Believe me, these people, whether they're grown adults or kids, they look at these drivers as like, wow, this is Bryson Robidoux. He drives the pure stock, and it's they love this stuff. So what I really wanted to just get into, what I really wanted the show all to be about is is the whole idea of what we do here is to be with our family and our friends, doing something that we love and having fun at it. You know, no matter what the day brings at the track at the end of the day, you know, yeah, you just got to chalk it up for, you know, okay, it was, you know, we learned from this. Hey, you know, whether it was driver error, mechanical error, you know, we learned from this. Hey, you know, you shouldn't have stuck your nose in at that point. You know, we had a lot of racing to go. We could have laid back a little while, you know, or, you know, hey, you know, when we nut and bolt the car, you know, we got to be a little more precise. We got to check and double check because if we didn't if we didn't miss this one nut and it came undone, you know, we would have still been out there and we would have had a top 5 finish. You know, so I believe that's what this show was about. You know, and I think I learned a lot from this myself because I did a little research and I was watching a podcast with. I think it's Kenny Wallace's podcast, and they had McMurray on there, Jamie McMurray, and he was talking about, you know, his son, you know, racing, moving up. He was running the legend cars, and I guess now he's running some kind of a modified. But he moved him up to that division instead of late models because it was more cost effective. You know, and, you know, everybody thinks, oh, well, he's a NASCAR driver. He has unlimited funds. Well, no, it doesn't mean that. You know, it doesn't mean he has unlimited funds. He might be in a different level of NASCAR than, you know, you're talking, you know, Kevin Harvick or, you know, whatever other drivers. I know there's a whole bunch of other ones. I think Kyle Larson's got his son racing now and a whole bunch of them. But, you know, some people just have more money. So he moved into that division where they do 100-lap races. You know, it's more affordable. He said it basically that the modified he runs is kind of like a dirt car with a sway bar. And, you know, they have some big tires on them, and they race 100-lap race. So it gives them, you know, the seat time in the car and how to, you know, save his tires and, you know, how to finish a race because, you know, I was always the question is, what's the first thing you have to do to win a race, right? I think, I don't know if the first thing, but I know one of them, first thing was probably you have to stop the race, right? But the other one would have to be, you know, you have to finish the race, right? You have to be there at the end to finish the race. So a lot of times, you know, they want to win it in the first lap, you know. But so I think with that said, you know, I'm going to end this podcast a little early. Thank you guys thank everybody for watching, and please, like I said, please share our podcast. You know, we're trying to get more viewers so we can interact with more people when we're on. I love to see the questions, and I like to hear your input, what you feel like about what I say, because I'm not saying everything I say is right, and you know, it's just my opinion at the end of the day, you know. But you know, in the end, it needs to be fun. You need to enjoy the moment because, you know, you don't know when the next one's going to be. You know, and you don't want to burn your kids out. You know, Timmy was telling me earlier there was some Bandolero kid that their parents were having him race all over the states. You know, he was racing 5 days a week, and they just burnt the kid out, and he was just, you know, he doesn't want to race anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's a fine line. Well, there's some kids that like Jacob, he'll race every single day. You know, I don't know if he'd get burnt out, but maybe he would. But you know, you don't want to do that. You know. You know, the funny thing was when we first started racing. I know this is off topic here, but when we first started racing, Jacob was playing soccer, and he was good at it. He loved it, and he was like 5 years old, and we'd gotten the quarter midget and started, you know, doing a little quarter midget racing. But then the soccer games were going to end up being on the days we raced. So we had to tell him, listen, you got to choose. You know, what do you want to do? You know, do you want to race or you want to play soccer, you know, can't do both because they're on the same day. And I guess you know the answer to that. So, but yeah, so remember, um, remember, racing is fun. Don't make it a job. Go to the track, no expectations, and enjoy the time with your family, your kids, and all your friends at the track. You know. So, all right. So anyway, we're gonna end the stream here. Thank you guys all for watching. And I will let you know the next time we're coming on. And hopefully, maybe we'll be on at the track this weekend. If not, definitely next week. All right, we'll see you all. Thanks for watching.